Once upon a time in the 1970s, a very famous rock musician flew out to Lagos, Nigeria to record an album. Half his band resigned before he even got on the flight. The studio in Nigeria was barely finished. He was mugged, lost his demo tapes, and it almost cost him his life. But out of this chaos, he created one of the finest albums of the 1970s. I'm about to meet Sir Paul McCartney, and this is the story of Band on the Run.
Well, the night was falling as the desert world began to settle down.
Band on the Run was the top-selling British album of 1974. It also reached #1 in the States on its way to earning Wings a Grammy. By 1976, and thanks to the success of the album, Paul, Linda and the band were conquering the USA on a massive tour. But at the beginning of the 70s, none of this could have been predicted. Band on the Run is one of my all-time favourite records. In this show, I'm going to talk to Paul McCartney and hear the story behind the making of this classic album.
I kind of knew how to be in the Beatles. I didn't know how to be in a band after the Beatles.
At the start of 1973, Paul McCartney was 30 years old, and 3 years had passed since the breakup of the Beatles. In those 3 years, he'd recorded and released 4 albums, but had yet to match the critical acclaim and success he'd enjoyed in the 60s. While still one of the world's greatest rock stars, life was now very different for Paul as just one of the former Fab Four. Paul McCartney, rock musician, was also a husband to Linda and a family man on their remote Scottish farm. Paul, thank you very much for having a chat with us.
My pleasure.
Take us back to, sort of, if you can, take us back to late 1973. What, you're out of the Beatles 3.5 years?
Yeah, 69. I've met and married Linda. By now I have 3 kids. We've been working on how to do a group after the Beatles, which was Wings. We've been gigging, been doing stuff, learning, getting a little bit better each year. Quite sort of wild, adventurous times.
Exciting, I imagine, coming from the regularity of having to be part of a band and the biggest band in the world and keeping to schedule and micromanagement.
Yeah.
And suddenly having that time to
there
yourself.
was a lot of liberty and so we used it. And Linda's a very adventurous girl, you know, she was a photographer, American, over here. So she wanted to see places, do places. That's why we ended up in Scotland. She said, "You've got a place in Scotland?" I was going, yeah, I don't go there much. She said, "Let's go," you know. So it was always like that, you know.
Whenever you see pictures of that, I always call it McCartney the beard years whenever I see it. Because you've got that big, just shearing a sheep and got that big beard on here.
Why not?
I don't belong, my heart isn't strong. Don't belong.
Life on the farm must have felt a long way away from the pressures of the rock business. But McCartney was making music with his new band, Wings. Wings were made up of wife Linda, drummer Denny Sewell, lead guitarist Henry McCulloch, and former Moody Blues guitarist Denny Laine. In 1972, Wings released a protest song, Give Ireland Back to the Irish, followed by the reggae-influenced Sea Moon and McCartney's unique take on Mary Had a Little Lamb.
It followed her to school one day, and it was against the rules.
A more varied choice of singles would be hard to imagine, leaving the critics wondering just what would Paul McCartney do next.
And you could hear them singing, la la.
Did you feel any pressure either from you or from the wider public that, okay, this guy's been out of the Beatles, biggest band in the world, you know, he's done a few things, you know, but, you know, you've been banned by the BBC, you know, Give Ireland Back to the Irish, which, by the way, my granddad thanks you for. You know, Mary Had a Little Lamb. So they're still waiting for the definitive post-Beatles McCartney record, aren't they, I guess?
Yeah, I think, you know, it wasn't so much a pressure, but I think we were waiting for it too. Because of the way we'd started Wings, which was like, have no idea how to do this new thing
Yeah.
after the Beatles. I kind of knew how to be in the Beatles. I didn't know how to be in a band after the Beatles. Linda certainly had no experience whatsoever. The other guys in the band had experience, but this was to be a new band and stuff. So, yeah, so there was a kind of certain, not so much pressure, but a certain desire.
But did you
to
put
get it
yourself
right.
under pressure?
Yeah.
being a
I've always
creative
put
guy,
myself,
exactly.
I always put myself under pressure, yeah. I'm always thinking that the next thing I'm going to do is be the best thing ever. And I'm always trying to get it right, and I always think I never have got it right. Even though I was in the Beatles and I've got Hey Jude and Let It Be and Number One's Coming Out Your Trouser Leg,
Sure.
I'm still sort of thinking, we could have, if only, you know. I think a lot of artists are like that.
But I guess you were a kid when you were in the Beatles, and then suddenly you leave
Yeah.
the Beatles, and that's adulthood, I suppose.
Yeah,
isn't it?
that's right. It was definitely grown-up time. But you could have fooled anyone. You know, we didn't act like grown-ups, I must say.
Said farewell to my last hotel, and never was much kind of a road. Glasgow town never brought me down when I was
In some ways, McCartney had gone back to the early days of the Beatles, except this time with a family in tow.
in the ghetto freeways.
He hired a van, bundled the kids in the back, and Wings went out on the road looking for gigs.
Make this journey last.
I love the story of you just getting in the van and hitting the road and saying, we're just going to rock up at universities and we're just going to play. Bear in mind,
We did that, yeah. We took the kids there. It was kind of hippie caravan. In fact, the guys who were on the tour, one of the drummer who came on that university tour, you know, talks to me about it and sort of said, you had the kids, you had the dogs, said you like had the potties. And it was just like, hey, family outing.
that's
you know.
great though.
It was great. We really loved it. I mean, it was quite potty, but it was just in the spirit of wildness and adventure and like, you know, well, why not? It's kind of the way we thought of it. Why not? Got a van? You know, let's go to the motorway.
Could you imagine McCartney rocking up to your university? All right, you want to come and listen to some...
And we did a gig. You know, they were slightly surprised. The head of the student union had to come out and check, and I'm going,
Surprised, I bet
from
he's
the
over the
van,
moon.
ooh, she loves you. He's giving me funny looks. Then we played the next day, and 50p on the door.
Yeah,
Good price.
yeah.
You know.
And what did that... Obviously it was enjoyable and it was kind of a bit cavalier and so forth. But do you think it sharpened you as a band and almost sort of brought you back to square one after the hysteria?
Well, it
of
was square
the
one.
Beatles? Yeah.
That was square one. You know that. So it gave us some live experience. So we show up at these universities. We had 11 songs, and we were going to play for an hour. Now, 11 songs won't stretch an hour. So you know, you start thinking on your feet. So, well, we've just had a request now from Bobby in the science department to do Lucille again. Well, we weren't going to do it again. Of course we were.
Yeah.
So we did a lot of songs twice. And we stayed at some lousy places. Oh, man. And, of course, they didn't like us. There'd be sort of a guy on reception like me. Hey, you know, rock and roll crowd, loud, because we would like to have a drink.
Well,
and
you wouldn't walk in and he'd
shout.
go, hey, it's one of the Beatles, this is amazing. He'd go, oh, it's
I don't know what happened. Nobody seemed to recognise me. It would have been good. Yeah, come in, Paul. You know, do you want something to eat? No, we were always scrounging sandwiches and could you keep the bar open another 20 minutes, please?
In May 1973, Paul McCartney and Wings released Red Rose Speedway. It was McCartney's fourth album since the Beatles, made #1 in the USA, and the single from the album, My Love, was to become a McCartney classic. Wings were on the up, but the pressure was on. There was a new collection of songs to record, songs that would become the album, Band on the Run. And instead of taking the safe route and recording in London, Paul McCartney was to take a massive gamble.
And then it came time to make the record, so I was looking for something different and adventurous. and I found a list of EMI studios. That was my record label, and they had studios everywhere. They had studios China, Brazil, and so Rio was kind of, wow, that's a nice idea.
It's attractive,
You thought,
yeah.
wow, that'd be great. But then they had one in Lagos, and I thought, that is so off the beaten track, and something's got to happen if we go to Lagos. It's not London.
Might not be good, but something's going to happen if we get to
I
Lagos.
must say, I never thought that, but you're right. I just thought, no, it'd be great. Wow, Africa. I was really thinking of rhythms and music, but in actual, so we chose Lagos.
You were about to get on the plane, and 2 members of Wings quit.
It was the night before. Yeah, we were scheduled to leave the next morning, and I just got a phone call from one of the guys saying there's 2 of us aren't coming. It was the drummer, Denny, and Henry, the guitar player, and they said, we're not coming. And so it was like, how to deal with that?
Sure.
You know, either to say, oh, okay, we're not going. I can't go without 2 of you guys. Or, hey, we're booked. We're going, hoping that they might show up or something.
Yeah.
So we took the latter option.
But I wouldn't be, if I was you, I wouldn't be cool about that. Two people I trusted just said, I'm not coming.
I wasn't cool about it.
I'd be-
I'm just acting cool now. It's a long time after. I was definitely not
pissed.
cool about it. Are you kidding? I was livid. It was like, trash. And you know what? The good thing about that was then it made me, I was wondering which way I was going to go. You know, sympathise with them or really not sympathise with them, which was the attitude I took.
Yeah.
Which was like, right, screw you. I am going to make an album that you will wish you were on.
Coming up, the 3 remaining members of the band, Paul, Linda and Denny Laine, fly out to Lagos in Nigeria to start recording Band on the Run. But things get serious when Paul and Linda are mugged.
There's a little squat one who's got a knife. I go, oh. And Linda was great. She's screaming at him. She said, leave him alone! Leave him alone! He's a musician!
In August 1973, Paul and Linda McCartney and guitarist Denny Laine flew out to Lagos in Nigeria to record the next Wings album. They'd taken a gamble on recording Far From Home. And right from the start, it looked like a decision they might come to regret.
Well, the night was falling as the desert world began to settle down. In the town, they're searching for you everywhere, but you never will be found. Band on the run.
So what were your first impressions of Lagos when you got there? Did you get there and just think,
Well-
I think we might have made a mistake here? Or did you just get there and think,
Listen,
come on?
Before we got there, we are in the plane. The pilot had recognised me, and they often say, if you'd like to come and watch the landing, that's like a little
Yeah,
perk.
great.
So I said, oh, I love it, you know. So I'm up there watching the landing, and down below is jungle. And there's a mist on the jungle. It's perfect. It's Africa. You know, it's like... But the 2 pilots are going, can you see it? I swear to God. I'm going, oh, no. He's going, I think that's it over there. No. I said, oh, my God, you know, are we even going to land? Never mind. Well, we did. And they finally saw it and landed. And the impression was, okay, this is like very underdeveloped. So it was a bit of a shock.
But also coming from the fact that your life for however many years was just so planned for you, and then suddenly you got to Lagos and, you know, it's chaos, I imagine.
Yeah.
But I imagine that was quite inspiring.
Yeah, it was kind of frightening stroke inspiring.
More frightening than inspiring.
Yeah, but you know that when you're placed in that situation, you've got to make a decision. You know, am I going to run home crying,
Yeah.
or make the best of this?
Yeah.
And we decided we'd make the best of it.
Down in the jungle, living in a tent. You don't use money, you don't pay rent. You don't even know the time, but you don't mind.
As always, Paul and Linda kept their young family around them.
Ho, hey ho.
But they were a long way from home, and Paul soon discovered that the studio in Lagos offered few of the comforts the Beatles had enjoyed at London's Abbey Road.
When your light is on the blink, you never think of worrying.
So even the sound of the album, I mean, the sound booths weren't built. They didn't know. The particular guys in the studio, it was quite a rough and ready studio.
Sure.
And so we had to talk to them, say, you know, back in London, they've got these things called sound booths. Oh. And they were beautiful guys. They were. I remember two of them. Innocent, one of them's called On Monday, which I just like the names.
Yeah.
But the guys, they were very nice guys, and we would have to say, no, we're going to get some wood, and we need some perspex, and we're going to make a vocal booth.